love sweet God Manga. Love just a time, don't you grab it. This video is brought to you by T-Blocks. Enjoy the content now, but stay for the shilling later. Welcome to Lobster Magnets and Friends. I'm here with my buddy Goro.
Hey, what's up? It's me.
And we are here to talk about Dr. Stone, Chapter 42. Yeah. And I got some new equipment, so hopefully I sound bitchin' with my new hyper duper mega hyper expensive microphone.
Yeah. And then we'll figure out how to use it also.
You know, it's working. That's half the battle for me.
Yeah.
Shut up. Shut up, Goro. It's working. That's half the battle. It's a winning battle. Wait till you see my new video. It's gonna be great. I'm working on it.
Yeah. Yep. It should be good. We'll look up some YouTube videos of how to use it properly. And how to use a mixer.
Plug and play. So, and then it does the things. So anyway, speaking of the power of science, what did you think of this week where we learn the origin of the Dr. Stone village, of Ishiyama Village? Oh, also, before we begin, shout out to Isle Soifer. Thank you for that comment last week about the Dr. Stone's name basically representing, you know, the Stone Doctor. That was a very interesting insight.
Yeah, it was a very interesting insight. I read that comment a while ago, and that makes a lot of sense for this manga now. Like the direction of the story, like heading more towards like Senku, and not Endurance Guy. So yeah, cool.
Nobody likes Endurance Guy, but this was a pretty interesting backstory in the terms of like that we learned that Seku's father, who is as of up till now, who's just like, you know, random dude guy, wanted to be an astronaut. It's interesting. Have you ever heard of this manga and anime series called Space Brothers?
No, I've never heard of it.
I think it's supposed to be good. It's kind of like a slice of life of basically the idea is like one brother is like, you know, kind of an average salary man, and he just wants to go and work, you know, he wants to go to space. But then his other brother, who's I guess a little bit more of a prodigy, gets to go to space. So it's about these like two brothers' adventures as one, you know, goes in space exploration. It's kind of like realistic space exploration. It's not like, you know, super futuristic. And his like adventures on the space station, while the other brother works to like get himself up to a level where he can go on a space station.
So one brother's already on a space station, and the other isn't.
Yeah, and the other brother wants to become, you know, a space, you know, astronaut guy.
Why does this chapter remind you of that?
Because like Senku's father wants to become like an astronaut, but he can't because he can't pass the, you know, clothed swimming exam.
Yeah, it was definitely a touching chapter. I got a good amount of feels from it.
Yeah, it was a very good chapter. Although I have more than a few questions. Like, so Senku's father like came back from space, and then he like did he like unstone people, and that's how he founded the village? Does that mean all of the people in the village are basically Seku's like great ancestors?
I think he made great ancestors from the other people on his space flight.
Possibly. That like, so why did the technology degrade? I guess they weren't smart enough to keep the technological heritage up. And so does that mean like Seku can't be with Kohaku because that would be like super generational incest? not that Seku is like a very sexual character. He's as asexual as they come, which is fine. We like him being a science boy. But now is it like officially impossible, or will the idea of like the great generational incest be like, you know, the editor of Shonen, whoever's editing Dr. Stone will be like, hey man, you got to make this happen, man.
It's like it can't be that bad. Like it's essentially Senku, like he would be having sex with this great
It's just
Cousin?
cousins, I guess. I guess that's not like the worst thing you can do on the incest chain of genetic proximity, but there is still that sort of ick factor, and I wonder if Boichi's gonna be like, oh god, oh, I'm gonna have like so much creepy, quasi like incest implying artwork now.
um, I mean, I hope not, but that doesn't. I think Senku isn't gonna be like that, like
No,
sexually interested in anybody in this
no,
series at the moment.
Seku is as asexual as you can come by, and but um, and yeah, I don't see him being like suddenly that changing, and I think he works as an asexual hero because
If anything, maybe he unstones someone, destonifies somebody, and he falls in love with them or something.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that feels against his character from what we've seen. He's like so like shonen heroes fall into one of two categories.
Mhm.
They're either like completely asexual, oblivious, think of like Luffy and Goku, or they're little pervert horn hounds like Naruto or
I mean, even Goku, like he has children and grandchildren.
yeah, but like he had to be like forced into it. He was like something like literally like the famous story is that Chi Chi's like, I'm gonna make you, we're gonna get married, and he thinks a fight's a marriage, and like that's the dojin I want to see, where like someone tries to explain sex to Goku, but it's not like, but it's not like sexy. It's kind of like explaining a retarded child how it works.
uh, Poor Goku.
Just how like awkward and uncomfortable. He's like, oh, that does what? But how does that help me punch? Just like basic like freaking sexual intercourse anatomy, like trying to explain it to him. Because yeah, Goku's like pretty much asexual, even though the fact that like they do the classic time jump thing and he has kids between it, but yeah, so those are the two spectrums you have. You have like a pervert, horn dog, or you have asexual, completely oblivious to any kind of sexual contact.
I'm sure Goku being like kind of like uh I guess he's not a perfectionist, but like he's always trying to improve himself. Like he would ask like one of his like perverted like character friends to like, okay, how do I please Chi? How do I please Chi?
That would be hilarious. I would pay for him to like get like sexual perversion tips from like Master Roshi
Or like Krillin or something like that.
Yeah, that would be funny. That would be funny. Like
Maybe Bulma too. Bulma would be into that conversation as well. Oh god.
honestly, I'm half surprised that like the whole like Saiyans reproducing with humans isn't like a Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex kind of situation. Have you ever?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But then again, like, I mean, I think like almost anything goes in this universe because like androids are having sex with humans as well.
Yeah, I never really understood that. How like the android reproduces. Like every now and then, I go into the Wikipedia page and they're like, "Oh, she's also half biological and she was turned into." I'm like, "What?" And then somewhere else, I read that like, "Oh, well, she was a robot before." But then she turned human with the Dragon Balls when she was brought back to life, and there's part of me that's like,
there are androids that can be brought back to life.
I don't know.
Well, I guess if you can wish for anything with the Dragon Balls, that makes sense.
I'm not quite sure of the logistics. I think it's like one of those things you shouldn't think too hard. You should just be happy that like Krillin, has a reasonably attractive mate, considering he's like the diminutive guy who's like failed throughout his like career as a martial artist.
Yeah, I still like Krillin. He's a cool dude.
Oh man, did we get sidetracked? All right,
Yeah.
back to the super feels thing. Did you enjoy Seku's like muscle stimulant thing to like teach his father how to swim?
Yeah, that was like a very heartwarming thing that he did for his father, and like his father was like so like happy and proud that Senku tried his best to like help him swim. Like he's just like I got my motivation right there to like to try and do the best I possibly could for this swimming test.
Yeah.
And, and he's like, and the committee was like asking them, "Oh, did it work for you?" And he's like, "Of course not."
But it was because he tried so hard that it was great for me. And then there was that scene where he shows him on television and Seku's like, kind of embarrassed. He's like, "Oh, thank you. It was nothing. My love for science to help my father."
Yeah, and it's a kind of interesting choice, like visually, to like hide the face from the father until his like most proudest shining moment.
Oh, I didn't even notice that you couldn't see the father's face. I don't. Yeah, I guess you're right. We didn't get to see it until they like show him like when he's like going up to space and he's like, "I'm gonna bring you so many scientific souvenirs."
Yeah, and yeah, that was like the first shot that we saw his face, and I just thought, yeah, that is a very cool, interesting, like artistic choice to do that. And
What
I
was it?
wonder how much of it was planned from either Boichi or like the writer's side as well, like whichever. What's his writer's name? What's his face?
Rinko something or another. iShield 21 guy, as I like to refer to him as.
His name is Rinko.
Yeah, Rinko. Like I'm probably butchering the name, but just let's go for iShield 21 guy for now.
I Shield 21 guy. So yeah, it made me realize like they're like working really well together. Like if they're able to, and like through probably like a language barrier too. This is like kind of amazing, like how
Oh
well
yeah, that is true. The like
this manga is. And
Boichi probably speaks Korean, and I guess he must have learned Japanese, or maybe he's multilingual, or who knows? Maybe there's a translator,
yeah,
or maybe Koreans, since they're like God's chosen people who are just super prodigies at whatever they do. He's just able to assimilate languages, and I'm only assuming that stereotype based on how good they are at video games.
yeah. So esports, but Japanese are pretty talented too. It's just I think it's just maybe
Well,
because he's Korean, like he's putting like a new spin on like manga that Japanese people haven't seen before. And
well, he's definitely
didn't even
like
think of.
he's definitely giving it 110%. Like it definitely feels like he's really trying, and it's interesting when you compare it to like the other duo, because like Promised Neverland's also done by like a artist writer duo,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it definitely feels like Boichi has something more to prove than the Promised Neverland artist.
Absolutely.
It feels like they coast and get a little lazy every now and then.
I feel like that a lot, actually, especially with like some of the later chapters.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're not like giving their all every time. That like there's sometimes where it's like let's get a little sketchy thing. You got used to my sketchy style. It's sketchy. Versus Boichi, who's like, I'm gonna make this gag the greatest facial fracture of all time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the super dramatic moments super badass. I'm gonna make the sexy moments super sexy, if you like it or not. I'm gonna make the funny moments the craziest humor of all time. And given our reaction to the facial fractures, I think Boichi's done surprisingly well.
Yeah. And like, characters, like how they react to things, like it feels very genuine. Like, for a good, I was saying like all the character reactions to, certain events or each other feel like genuinely drawn. Like their facial expressions, their body language, most of it feels like very genuine.
Yeah.
And I think Boichi, I gotta give Boichi credit for that. Like he does play that very beautifully with his drawings.
Yeah, he does do a very good job with that. He does, good job of like selling those, every single pose. And this is definitely like a great little chapter. And I'm very curious though. Well, here's a question there. Do you think he like came back like a few hours or days after the petrification, or do you think he was like in cryostasis and then he came back like years in the future? Because didn't Seku?
I think it only happened on Earth that the petrification happened, and he was still on the shuttle, and everyone else was petrified. And by the time he landed back on Earth, he was the only one who's still unpetrified.
Yeah,
That's my theory.
But when do you think he came down? Do you think it was like everyone got petrified and he like came back a few days, or do you think he like spent a few years up there, or maybe he was in cryo sleep? Because didn't Seku talk about how the village was like kind of relatively recent, like it had only been there for a couple hundred years?
Oh yeah. Oh, I wonder if there's gonna be some kind of. I hope there's not like a continuity issue that happens there.
Well, there's still enough room that we can have an explanation, but like that's what I'm curious about. Because Seku did say like, oh, this village looks like it's only been here for a couple hundred years.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, what if? What if the village has a more complicated history than we think?
How so?
I don't know. Maybe the village like fractured from the main village, and they made their own separate community, and I don't fucking know. It's just random shit, random bullshit.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered by how this is, actually working out.
Yeah, that's true.
But generally, this is like an interesting explanation that like all of these people are like somehow Seku's ancestors. But we'll have to learn if like
Are we gonna get more flashbacks? Do you think?
possibly like maybe we'll learn more legends about his father, and if he found a petrification formula, or if he just reproduced with like people who came from the space station or whatnot.
Because that's what I kind of want for next chapter. I want like more info dump, like flashback. I don't know like where else they can possibly go with the story after showing this chapter though.
Well, we can get more backstory in terms of like the story about how the village was founded. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
Okay, yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily be like more of a flashback of Senku's dad or anything. It would just be like the village, like how it was founded years and years ago.
Yeah, 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 pretty much how it was founded years ago and how his dad founded it and whatnot. That would definitely be a good thing to follow up with. And then, of course, we got to build more science stuff now that he's got the Kingdom of Science.
Yeah, what's gonna be the next goal? Like, what do you think is gonna be the next goal or threat that comes to this village?
Well, what I'd love to see is him to like build refrigerators or like build like a power station that like can actually have like lights on all the time. That kind of stuff, or like build like a primitive computer. Or, obviously the most obvious conflict is to like have a primate guy reintroduce him.
You think Gaston and Primate Guy are gonna meet up?
Oh, totally. They have to everything's like set up so well for that.
But and once they do meet up, like shit's gonna go down, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Gaston's gonna tell Primate Guy that like Seku is still alive, and then Primate's Guy's gonna like bring upon his army of super buff Boichi people to, and then it'll probably be like Seku like trying to like build a defense in terms of like weapons and cool science traps and whatnot.
Oh my god! What if he just like makes an electric fence of some kind?
That would be really cool.
Oh my god, that would be awesome.
That would be really cool. Yeah, I'd be up for that. Like a little Home Alone arc where there are like all these like science traps.
Yeah.
While the primate guys, thing. But just like I'd be happy if it was like the next 10 chapters was him just like building stuff. That's when That's when Dr. Stone's the best, is when it's Seku building stuff.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind that. I'm just kind of curious if there's gonna be like, because I want there to be like some semblance of an overarching plot to Senku just like building stuff for the sake of building stuff is neat, but
Well, he's
I
got to
need that.
restore civilization. So here are two overarching threads we could have right now. Number one, getting the technological heritage of the village up to early 20th century, 18th century industrial age. That's one goal. The other goal is expanding the kingdom of science by like finding people to unpetrify them and expand his village. And also hopefully get people with more skills that can help contribute, to more scientific progress.
Yeah, that's a good point. You'll find like this.
I
What,
was the physician. I was the technician of a nuclear reactor.
he was the strongest technician or something like that. A cheat level technician. He'll like find cheat level characters of every kind of type.
Yeah, exactly. Well, will we ever see Endurance Guy? Yeah, and you got to introduce Endurance Guy again, even though nobody really gives a shit about him.
Yeah, I think eventually we'll sort of care a little bit. Like, it's sort of a little invested in his like little love story thing, and I'm also curious like how he could have possibly integrated with Primate Guy's village at
Yeah, I
all.
am very, very curious to see what Primate Guy's village is. Like, I think maybe after like the Seku stuff, we'll get like a chapter or two introducing like the cast of Primate Guy and all the people he's revived and what they're capable of.
Yeah,
And there'll be all these like burly Senken rock people, and they'll just be like super muscular and just like, I'm the blah 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 guy. I'm gonna kill the blah blah blahs with my fists.
yeah, exactly. And yeah. I wonder what Endurance Guy is like. Actually, what's his role in that village right now? Like that Primate Guy probably assigned him for something, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't know, being endurancey. So, what score would you give this chapter?
I'd say it was a solid chapter of manga, and it made me happy. And I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
I think that's fair. That's what I was leaning towards. Like, I don't think it's like quite nine material, but I did think it was like a really good solid chapter overall. It was had the good old feels, it had the nice little science stuff, and you got to learn about Seku's dad, and you got a little bit more mythology built in terms of like how the symbol of the village is the symbol from the spacecraft.
Yeah, exactly.
So overall, good goddamn chapter. Good piece of manga. Any final thoughts?
Just can't wait to see some more, behind flashbacks of Senku's dad and the origin of this village. So
Yeah, we'll learn if they're all related to him.
they probably are.
Well, actually, though, that makes sense because Seku always talks about how they're like mixed race. They're like half Japanese. So hypothetically, Seku's father, like maybe like finds someone on the international spacecraft who's like American or whatever, or Russian, and then they serve as the progeny to form this village.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I would be interested to learn how they weren't able to like keep the technological heritage up and how they like kind of got primitive and never quite like were able to like maintain that.
That would be interesting.
Hopefully it's not something dumb where it's like, Sheku, I'm not good with science, but I know you're out there, and that if you ever revive from the stone, I'm gonna make this village so you can take it over.
God, that'd be pretty lame, but yeah, I don't see that happening.
Hopefully not. It's not the worst thing that could happen, but I've seen other series do that. I'm trying to think of another series that did something similar to that.
Probably something like Black Clover.
Well, there's this really shitty series called Cage of Eden, which had probably my least... That's actually some ways similar to Dr. Stone. It's a really, really shitty manga series. So basically the premise is like these... It's kind of like Lost in that like there's like a bunch of like high schoolers and other people on a plane, but then they like fall to this island. Mm-hmm. And the island is filled with prehistoric creatures that are like not quite dinosaurs, but they're like giant sloths and giant monkeys that are like, you know, from like 100,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you know, it's like all this sort of like, you know, oh, it's Lord of the Flies, and oh, we need to rebuild civilization, and oh, main character needs to get with best girl person, and then in the end you learn the reveal behind the island, which is probably one of the dumbest reveals I've ever seen. That basically the mother of the kid, you know, they learn that they apparently traveled into the future. And then the mother was depressed because she lost her son. So she worked with a billionaire who also had a daughter who disappeared on the plane to build this island and genetically create all these primitive, you know, animals through genetic engineering, just because she had visions of her son having adventures on it with different people on the island.
Oh my god, that is so stupid. That is the stupidest thing that's ever been written.
It was the dumbest ending I have ever seen for any manga.
Did you read that the whole way through?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. Oh god, it was so bad.
You should do a solo review on that.
It was so bad. It was so bad. I don't think I ever groaned harder. And the worst part is like it was a manga that thought it was like much smarter than it was. It would like explain these sort of basic things. Like it was like, oh yeah. It was basically like the retarded version of Dr. Stone.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. So, you know, and I don't think like a revelation like, oh, I built this all for you, Seku, would kill Dr. Stone. But there is a part of me that would like groan a little bit towards it.
Oh man, now that I think about it, I don't know. I really hope they don't do that at all.
It's not as bad as that. Like I'm gonna create this island.
At least the father thinks like, oh, maybe one day all these people will wake up from their stone slumber, and then I'll have a village for Senku to come to.
Yeah, that's a little better than, you know, I'm going to make this island filled with dangerous creatures that are going to murder people because I had these visions of my son having adventures with them. Because literally that's like the whole manga is like everyone being murdered by all the dangerous creatures on this island and how it's like this miserable hellhole.
That's so dumb.
It is really stupid.
That is so dumb.
It is one of the dumbest things I have ever seen. Maybe I'll find that final chapter just so I could share it with you.
Oh god. All right.
All right, so I think we finished our thoughts. Check out the sponsor. Get, you know, 10% off the T blocks down in the code below. And thank you for hanging out with us. And remember, lobsters and tennis, but don't you grab it.
Do you like clothes but hate shopping? Then T-Blocks is the subscription service for you. But I know what you're thinking.
But Lobster, how is that any different than Loot Crate or the other subscription services?
Well, T-Blocks sends you t-shirts, which is clothing, which is actually useful, unlike the useless swag junk that Loot Crate keeps peddling on gullible schmucks. And this isn't just knockoff brand crap. T-Blocks hooks you up with licensed shirts for all the stuff you love, because you need clothes. How else are you going to keep your puny human man flesh protected from the elements? T-shirts are useful for any occasion. Wear them, give them to friends, give them to enemies, knit them together, make a quilt. T-shirts are life. And you know the best part? It'll only cost you $6.99. That's right, you can get 12 shirts sent to you for once a month for only $6.99. And you know what? If ultra cheap licensed goods are too basic for you, then there's also the Community T-Block set, which features original designs from the best up-and-coming artists so you can keep that hipster street cred. But I'm here to save you even more money! Use the code LOBSTERTBX at checkout and you'll save 10% on any order. Be a t-shirt wearing god amongst mortals. Use the power of the most expensive seafood to get you the cheapest t-shirts now!